I'm the co-founder of Event Horizon, and I'm going to talk to you guys about what we've been building for the Arbitrum ecosystem and where we plan on taking it next. So, a good place to start would be the problems we're trying to solve. So there's a few problems, but I'm going to list 3 explicitly. The first is nobody actually votes in DAOs. If you look at the wallet participation rate in any of the major DAOs, and that would include Arbitrum, but also Optimism, Maker, any of the largest DAOs, it's about 1%. But not only that, the token participation rate is also about 1%. And that's not good, right? First of all, if 99% of your users, 99% of your community is not participating in governance, probabilistically, the next best idea is sitting in the head of one of those 99%. So from a merely practical perspective, it's not good for your idea generation pipeline. On top of that, if your token's sole utility is governance, and only 1% of them are being used for governance, what are we doing? So that's something that we're trying to solve as well. And then the third problem that we're trying to solve is voting is great, token participation is great, but at the end of the day, delegates drive DAOs. And this was actually feedback we got early on by talking with some of the delegates in the Arbitrum ecosystem, that, hey, we'd love to have more voters, but at the end of the day, most of the ideas, most of the debate doesn't actually happen. The decision isn't made on Snapshot. The decision is not made on Tally. The decision is made in the forums beforehand. So we want more, not only delegates expressing their opinions and getting involved in the conversations, but also we want to make sure that these delegates are subject matter experts. You want to make sure you have someone who knows DeFi voting on DeFi proposals, someone who knows gaming voting on gaming proposals, etc. I'm going to start with the first 2 problems. The way that we solve the first 2 problems, or the way that we try and put our finger in the scale towards increasing these participation rates, is through this novel governance mechanism we call implicit delegation. So explicit delegation is a system we all know and love, and it works great for a lot of things. You have your tokens, you delegate them to a delegate, and then the delegate votes on your behalf, and that's great. It's like representative democracy, but in DAOs. However, there are other ways. That 99% of token holders, that 99% of DAO citizens that are not participating, we wanted to think about ways for getting these people off the sideline and participating with incentives that were non-monetary. And this is what implicit delegation does. So essentially, Event Horizon gets delegated tokens. And we give all of that voting power to DAO citizens. Anyone can basically go on our website, mint a free soulbound NFT, and you're part of the community, and then they could vote to determine how all of the tokens delegated to us votes. And the upshot of that is if even one person shows up to vote, that one person moves the whole block. But we've never seen one person show up to vote. Why? Because the way that the game theory works is that when one person shows up to vote, they functionally have a massive vote multiple on their, let's call it cost to mint to enter into the community, which is about $3. They get an insane multiple. They're moving the whole block themselves. But what that also means is that the second person who wants to vote gets a massive multiple as well. It gets cut in half, but we're talking $100,000x to maybe 50,000. Same thing for 3, 4, 5, 6, and it tapers off. Now what this does is it turns the problem into a solution. So if few people show up to vote, those who do show up to vote get a very large vote multiple. And what this is saying is, hey, you cared about a proposal that nobody else did, you put in the time, you put in the effort, you voted, here's your reward, and crucially, it's non-monetary. It's a vote multiple. Now the flip side of that is if a lot of people start participating, yeah, the vote multiple gets compressed, but now we have more people voting. So no matter what happens, we're either rewarding the people who do show up to vote, or we're still rewarding the people who show up to vote when there's a multiplicity of them, but now there's more. And this is all done without having to pay people a single dollar. And the goal of this is just to get people used to voting, because no one's going through the forums. very few people, let me rephrase that, very few people are going through the forums, very few people are debating, very few people know to go to Snapshot, and then it goes to Tally, and then there's a 2-week period, and there's a cool-off period. Nobody knows all that stuff. So we try and put this all in a seamless UX so that it's easy for these people to start getting to cut their teeth in the governance process. Another feature, and this is new, and this is one of the first times we've talked about it publicly, for trying to get more, let's call it specialized delegates, is this concept called sacrificial specialization. And in my completely unbiased opinion, this is pretty cool. What it does is whenever a DAO proposal goes on, say Arbitrum, we copy that proposal over, our community votes, okay? But we're gonna categorize each proposal. Each proposal gets tagged as, say, DeFi, marketing, grants, operations, whatever it is, and then you can vote. Now, if you vote consistently on the same type of proposal, your voting power within the Event Horizon voting block goes up for that category, but you sacrifice voting authority on the other categories. So this forces people, again, through a non-monetary incentive, to stick to a lane and to pick something that they know best and to vote only on that thing. And if it's a very contentious proposal, well, we can know it's a very contentious proposal through many means, but also because people are giving up some of their multiple on, the DeFi category that they've spent a lot of time growing to vote on another category. So this is one of the cool little aspects of like the think tank side of Event Horizon that's been a lot of fun developing. How does this affect the solution? So as far as the first two solutions, we had the voter participation and the token participation. As far as voter participation, again, non-monetary incentive, streamlined UX is all getting people to start voting on DAO proposals with as little friction as possible and with a little bit more meaningful say. Instead of that $100 of Arbitrum you might have, you're now voting with maybe $50,000, maybe $100,000. That's pretty enticing for someone who might be sitting on the sidelines, sitting on the fence, figuring out if they want to start participating. Second, as far as token participation, we vote every single time. We being the DAO itself. Because as long as one person shows up to vote, the whole block gets mobilized. So what this does is it kills this Satoshi wallet effect that you get, where if you look at any of the largest DAOs, you'll see the overwhelming majority of delegates aren't actually voting anymore. And the problem with that is when people delegate, they very rarely undelegate. So it gets stuck in that dead delegate's wallet. We are voting every single time, so the token participation of all the tokens delegated to Event Horizon is 100%. And you have this other benefit where the delegates are stretched pretty thin right now. They essentially have to be experts on everything. You have to be an expert on gaming and operations and protocol upgrades and all these things. With Event Horizon, because we're voting as long as one person votes, the whole block votes, it self-selects. So if you only want to vote, and maybe it's because of sacrificial specialization or just because of interest, you will vote on the proposals you want, but regardless, the whole block is voting. So that's another little cool upshot of the game theory we've been building. Now, a question we get at this point is usually, where do you get the delegations from? And we do have some small community delegations, and if you want to delegate to us, that'd be great. We'd appreciate it. But what we do is we're functionally a DAO service provider. So we started with Gitcoin, and with Gitcoin, we're like, hey, nobody's voting on your DAOs. Why don't you guys delegate from your treasury, because all these DAOs have massive treasuries of tokens just in there. Delegate to us. You hold on to the tokens yourselves. Delegate to us, and we'll bring in more users. And so, if before they had, 20 people voting with more than $1,000, now we can 10x that. So we started with Gitcoin, and they made us, we went through the Gitcoin DAO. They made us their 6th largest voter in the ecosystem by the DAO itself. Next, Compound. So this actually was a sort of a surprise that fell into our lap. So I don't know how many of you guys follow DAOs generally speaking, but there was a governance attack on Compound. And so what the Compound DAO started doing was starting to delegate out to active but underrepresented delegates, similar to how Uniswap did that about a year ago. We were on that list because, again, we vote 100% of the time. And so we got about $2.2 million worth of Compound. I don't remember how much that is in terms of Compound. And they delegated that to us, and that's great. So now we're like the 7th largest active voter in the compound ecosystem, which is pretty cool. And most importantly, we have a proposal live on Arbitrum right now, and it closes in a few hours, and we're passing. So, thank you. And this isn't relevant to the project, but passing something through Arbitrum is really hard. Because it's a pretty decentralized DAO, relatively speaking. Like, there's actually a lot of delegates. Hitting quorum is insanely hard. And so we kind of have to lobby these guys and be like, hey, we're building something we think would be useful to the ecosystem, help us out. And I will say we're very pleasantly surprised with the fact that I think without exception, every single delegate we spoke to seemed to have been motivated by the right reasons. They seem to be very altruistic, interested in the overall benefit of the ecosystem. And this is particularly cashed out because, in a sense, they're giving away relative power to retail voters by delegating to Event Horizon. But we had overwhelming support from the delegates, so that was really gratifying and kind of validated and made me feel a lot better about the state of who's actually running the DAOs in arguably the most important DAO in the ecosystem. So kudos to Arbitrum. What does the product actually look like? So you can go to eventhorizon.vote, go to the website, you mint a free soulbound NFT. It's on Ethereum L1 for now. We're going to expand it everywhere we can. And you go, you mint, and you get this free soulbound NFT. Now what that entitles you to do is you can go to the website, go to the vote tab, and go to the meta governance tab, and then there's a little drop down, and you can select any of the DAOs we support. So that's Uniswap, Compound, Aave, Arbitrum, Gitcoin, I think Shapeshift, and that's about it. And as far as active voters, we'll soon to be the 15th largest in Arbitrum, 10 on Uniswap, 7th on Aave, 6th on Compound, 6th on Shapeshift, and 5th on Gitcoin. So that's real power for the people who want to show up and vote. You know, the little guys who are starting to participate, they're moving some serious. It's not enough to like flip any votes, and that's by design, right? But it is enough to get people starting to vote. So that's pretty cool. So you can vote right there, and then the winner is a winner-take-all model. Whoever wins, the whole block votes that way, and we can split that up if we want, but no DAO's requested it so far. And then we have like a little leaderboard. We're trying to gamify it a little bit. Think Duolingo of governance. That's the idea here. Make this as easy as possible. We also want to have some form integrations that we're working on. So lots being built right now. And then the final thing we're working on, this is the first time we're talking about this publicly, is a delegate boot camp of sorts. So a lot of the university blockchain clubs, UPenn, Princeton, Michigan, etc., a lot of the largest VCs delegate to them for legal reasons, I believe. And so what happens is these kids, they're like 18, 19 years old, they all of a sudden find themselves in control of like multi-million-dollar delegations in the largest DAOs in the ecosystems that have billions of dollars in their treasury. It's a good position to be in, and these guys are sharp, they're Ivy League guys, so everybody wants to have that role. So it's very competitive. So what they do is they have a selection process. And in that selection process, they learn about how to be a delegate, they learn about how to vote, they learn about how DAOs work, how to participate, how to express your rationale, etc. Now, what we're doing, and we're starting with Franklin DAO at UPenn, and there's a few more we're talking to, is we're going to start integrating Event Horizon into that program. So that way, these kids who want to start, young adults who want to get started as a delegate, can start not only learning the theory, but actually voting through Event Horizon with some decently sized governance authority, and then, of course, posting rationales. And that's the important thing, because we want to get delegates, and these are smart people. They're going to be computer science majors, they're going to be finance majors, they're going to be accounting majors, marketing, you name it. And they're going to be learning governance, and they're going to be practicing governance, and they're going to be posting the forums and contributing to discussion, and of course also voting. So that would hopefully do a little bit to solve the problem of not having enough specialized delegates. So that would be all three problems with one unified, seamless front-end experience. So that is Event Horizon. Thank you.
We've got 5 minutes for questions. If
Sure.
you want to raise Hello, hello. Hey, Christian. How do you ensure that the people that mint the soulbound NFT actually have skin in the game and they're like acting, I guess, honestly?
Yeah, so we got that question a lot with the proposal, and the answer to that is the same applies to delegates. We are a delegate. We're a delegate like any other delegate. And the delegation we've received is at the hands of the other delegates, which come from people delegating to those delegates. So it's all part of the same democratic system. Whatever incentives the delegates have, we have. But also, and crucially, we are not the final say. So there's a multi-sig. There's a multi-sig involved. It's by the DAO. It's the MSS multi-sig. And so essentially, that multi-sig, whenever we want to vote on the on-chain proposals, the multi-sig can force abstain any of our votes. And that's by design. It's just an extra security precaution just to make sure everything's fine. Again, we're nowhere near the size of it being even remotely close to like flipping a vote. I mean, right? It's a power law distribution with these delegations. And on top of that, you know, these delegates do want to, the idea is if you're voting, you're trying to build a reputation. You don't have money, you don't have a delegation at all. You want to build a reputation to have your own delegation. And so there's like this reputational risk of doing anything malicious on top of the MSS multi-sig and on top of the fact that we're a delegate like anyone else.
So thank you for your presentation. So when you mint an NFT to vote through Event Horizon to use the delegates token stack, do you need, like if I want to vote on an Arbitrum proposal, do I need Arbitrum in my wallet as well? No.
No.
And then it's the voting with the NFT within Event Horizon. It's just one NFT, one vote, and then that's what decides how the delegate the full.
Yes, with also a Gitcoin pass requirement for Sybil consideration.
For Sybil resistance.
Yeah, okay. And then once sacrificial specialization goes live, we'll add in a little multiple for if you stick to a category, you get rewarded and you get more relative voting power within that category.
And sacrificial specialization will be within Event Horizon?
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring it to you. Awesome idea with onboarding delegates from universities.
Thank you.
Yeah, just because these are going to be the future builders of Arbitrum. Can you explain more? Like, do you have enough reach across universities? The Arbitrum Foundation is also actively working with universities with the Ambassadors Program. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the Ambassadors Program of the Foundation and Event Horizon could also have a chat.
Yeah, I mean, this is early days. Like I said, this is the first time we're talking about it publicly. For some reason, the University Blockchain Clubs really like us. I don't know why, but so we just have a good relationship with them in general. But also the integration is pretty seamless. It's like, hey, we could spin up these voter passes for you. Maybe we'll do something custom. Maybe get a vote multiple within the Event Horizon DAO if you're part of this delegate bootcamp training program. There's a lot of stuff that we still want to iron out and add to that. But again, we'd love to talk with the foundation or Off-Chain Labs or anyone to continue to expand that because we want more delegates. We want more specialized delegates.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
I would like to know if there is a precedent about that mechanism that you are sharing about voting using categories or any metric for projection, how it can be change the behavior of the users in Arbitrum DAO?
Well, no one's really doing, all the things we're doing, we're usually the first to do it. Largely because, unfortunately, depending on where you're standing, a lot of the brain power has gone into DeFi because it's very clear you can make money. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in governance. And, we just decided to focus on that. So we haven't really seen the categorization play out. Will it affect people's mentality? Maybe if there's a proposal and it just says DeFi category at the top, perhaps. Intuitively, I can't imagine it would do anything major. As far as changing voting patterns, within the proposal you were already going to vote on in the first place. But with sacrificial specialization, the idea is that yes, it would affect who votes in the first place. Because we don't want everyone voting on everything all the time if you have no idea what you're talking about. Of course, you still can. We don't want to be, we don't want to be policing people. The idea is this is permissionless. But we want to incentivize it just a little bit by saying, hey, if you stick to a lane, you will grow more of a reputation, you will grow more of a voting power within the Event Horizon block. And then you can go from there and become a delegate eventually.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. My question is regarding to the long-term vision that you have to keep people voting, because we know in our ecosystem people are moving to trends, so it's hard to keep people building things and stick to an idea. So how you guys are thinking about this?
I mean, I guess I suppose we have more of an abundance mindset that there's not going to be a shortage of voters. Crypto is super early days. The amount of people actually voting, it's usually in the thousands. We always talk about onboarding the next billion users. Even within the already existing users, there's so many people who don't even know how governance works. There's so many people who don't know where to start. There's so many people who feel like their vote of $100 of Arbitrum will be a drop in the bucket. This helps solve that a little bit. We think the bucket's pretty deep here. We think there's a lot of the target audience can be pretty large. So we're not worried about running out of potential voters.
Hey, great presentation, and maybe I missed it, but at the beginning when you were explaining the specialization or like the categories. For example, I have a master's in game design, right? So I would like to vote in gaming, but is there some type of onboarding process where you qualify skills, or like how does that part actually work?
Yeah, this comes up occasionally when we talk about it, and the idea is we don't want to be the gatekeeper. We don't want to say, sorry, you can't vote in gaming proposals unless you have, a degree from a top 50 university or you've worked at these 8 institutions. Maybe you have some good ideas and you live in Africa. You're not gonna have a degree in that. You're not gonna have work experience, but you can prove yourself over time. So the idea is to not be very paternalistic about this. We get this with, how do you make sure people are gonna vote correctly? And I'm like, what? Determined by who? So we try and keep our hands off, have little incentives, non-monetary incentives, tip the scale a little bit, and then just let people figure it out. We don't want to be the gatekeeper saying, no, you have to be part of a traditional institution and participate in this thing that's supposed to break down the institutions.
And can you select like a minimum, like a maximum of categories? Is there like a database of categories of like professions or things like that?
There's a couple protocols. Hats is one. There's another one whose name escapes me that is working. Tally, of course, as well. They're working on categorization, so we actually won't have to solve that problem ourselves. We are doing some AI integrations. We have proposal summaries using ChatGPT, and we have rationale. If you vote, you can have we poll people, why did you vote a certain way, and we have some ChatGPT summaries and then a custom box, and so we do want to make sure it's easier for people to participate. They can get the barrier to entry is a little bit lower, but thankfully we can outsource the actual categorization aspect. So.
Hi. Maybe I didn't get it, and Derek already asked this, but how do you protect yourself from, let's say, bot farms, AI bot farms, and so on? Because I can spin up, let's say, 1,000 accounts, mint 1,000 tokens, and move my vote whatever I want.
Yeah, so I mentioned it briefly with another question, which was we have Gitcoin passport integrations. So that's the Sybil resistant aspect. No.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone.